Have you ever had a moment to finally sit down, rest, and instead of feeling peaceful, you feel super anxious and maybe like the schedule finally slows down, like holidays are over or school is finally out, the house is quiet, maybe the kids are asleep, you've stopped moving, like after a busy day, you just sit down for a few minutes, but your mind starts spinning. Like your thoughts are louder, you can't stop thinking about things. Maybe you feel restless or guilty. Maybe you just have a ton of emotions. Maybe you're just unable to sit still. Like your legs are moving constantly and you feel like you need to do something. You need to feel productive. You have to find something to do. If you've ever wondered, why can't I relax? That's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And a lot of people, especially people that have trauma or chronic stress, rest doesn't feel peaceful, and because it feels unsafe to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's something I think a lot of people don't understand, is that if I just sit here, I don't feel safe.
Right. And that's what we're talking about today. Why stillness can feel threatening maybe to your nervous system, why some people are literally terrified of slowing down, and how God teaches us to experience rest safely again.
Yep.
Welcome to Hope Through the Hard, a curated coalition podcast where we talk honestly about life struggles and how to face them in healthy, hope-filled ways. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul says, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." That's the purpose of this space. Real conversations about the hard things in life and the hope that carries us through. Visit curatedcoalition.com to find our coaching services and book a free consultation.
Hi, I'm Levi. This is Ashley. And we have the boys, Lincoln and Lyndon, doing production today. So, kid question?
Okay, so would you rather eat snails that taste like chocolate or lasagna that tastes like snails?
Oh,
I thought it was slug.
No, it was snails.
Either way.
I misunderstood then.
okay. I'm definitely taking the chocolate snails. I don't want lasagna snails. I want chocolate
You want
snails.
to eat the shell?
Just
Yeah, that's okay. That's like a crunchy, like chocolate covered nut or something. Yeah, it's fine. Well, we'll move past that. I don't like lasagna that much to start with, and snail tasting lasagna, I'm out. Sorry, what were you saying? A peanut what?
Like a peanut M&M. It's
Yeah.
the crunch.
Yeah.
Go with it, little chocolate. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what snails or a slug taste like. So
I'm assuming it would be the texture would be the hardest part to get past.
But is the texture lasagna or is the texture the slimy snail?
slimy snail.
Gotcha.
No, he said it's lasagna, but it tastes like a snail. That's different.
No.
It would have to feel like lasagna, wouldn't it?
It's his question.
Just like all the slime, just
his
like
rules.
the slime just
So it's a slimy
Coated
lasagna.
over
A
the-
slimy lasagna. Anyway.
So is the snail.
No, it tastes
No.
like chocolate.
The snail, if
The
you ate an
snail tastes
actual
like
Right,
snail,
but
it
the
would.
lasagna is covered with slime. So shouldn't it be covered with whatever lasagna is
What are
covered
you
with?
two eating? Chocolate snails or lasagna snails?
Chocolate snails.
Same.
lasagna.
Oh,
Yeah,
gross.
right. He's not eating that.
No, there's no way he'd eat that.
No.
No
No.
chance. Okay, well,
Fun
that
question.
was a disgusting question. Thank you, boy. I'm glad you asked that. Okay, so jumping back into our conversation for today, one of the effects of trauma is chronic stress, the inability to calm your nervous system down and move out of survival mode. So when someone lives in constant stress, they often experience chaos. Maybe they see everything as criticism, or they are super critical. They're usually hypervigilant. They're like constantly looking for what the next thing that's coming at them is going to be. And they're usually emotionally unpredictable. And so the body begins in that state to interpret movement, productivity as safety. So when life calms down, when things are quiet, maybe when you lay down at bed in bed at night, your nervous system is going to start to panic. Not because actually resting is dangerous,
Right.
but because your body never learned, that nervous system never learned that rest could be safe. Okay, so research published by the NIH, the National Institute of Health, says that chronic stress exposure, so being exposed to a constant state of stress, dysregulates your automatic nervous system, and it increases that hypervigilance, that being constantly on alert. And then you have difficulty shifting into any kind of restorative state. So, yeah. So when you're exposed to that chronic stress, you really you actually can't slow your body down until you learn to shift out of that stressed state. And that can be hard for a lot of people to do because it does feel so unsafe.
Yeah, because what some of those are accustomed to and what feels normal is that exhaustion and the danger and I'm not safe and okay, this is comfortable. This is what I'm used to.
Right.
And then whenever they have peace, that's not comfortable because that's not normal. That's not how they feel every single day, which is rough. That's miserable.
Yeah. Survival mode then becomes the baseline.
Right.
And people then are feeling safest when they're busy, when someone needs them, when they're being productive, when they're alert, when they're over functioning, because slowing down creates space for your emotions to come to the surface and for your brain to start processing things that maybe are uncomfortable or that maybe they're reliving that past trauma that they've spent all of this time trying to outrun. And that's essentially what being overproductive is you're trying to outrun the trauma that happened.
Yeah. And so what does this look like in every single day? Because whenever you start to say survival mode, we start probably thinking of life or death and I'm surviving zombie attack or whatever it might be. So survival mode, I gotta hold on to this last little bit, but it's not really necessarily that. It's sometimes very, very subtle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So this can look a lot like, because I think your question was, what does this look like in everyday life?
Yeah.
Overscheduling, having something to do all the time. And if you aren't going somewhere or getting ready to go somewhere or doing something on your way to do something, then you're stressed out. So overscheduling, this is where it showed up for me, constant cleaning.
Yes.
Looking for something constantly to wipe down, to clean up, to pick up, to whatever. An inability to sit still during a movie. Like if you have to get up all the time or be doing something else, which is another one, multitasking when you should be sitting calmly. So either one of those, maybe checking your phone all the time, which is bad because our phones are designed for us to stimulate that. And so if you're constantly checking your phone, that's another really good sign that you have something that you're trying to outrun, some trauma somewhere. Maybe it's just that you feel guilty. If you take your family to the beach and you're sitting on the beach and you're resting and that makes you feel guilty. If you need noise all the time, if you have to have a show playing, music going, white noise while you sleep, that's another way that this shows up so it can look like a lot of different things for many different, anybody. It could be a combination of those or just one of those. It could look different for everybody.
Oh yeah, because you cleaned all the time and thought that we had to have everything cleaned every single day, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
And it took a little while to break those habits and the ways of that response of your brain just saying this has to happen. This is what I need to do. It's like, no, we can sit and relax a little bit.
I still can't rest until the dishes are done. Like we finish dinner, I need those dishes to be done so that I can rest. So I'm not healed. Like I'm still in process. Like there's still things that I need to work on too. Right. And so part of it for me, I think, is removing the clutter from our house kind of removes the clutter in my mind, and it doesn't overstimulate me as much. But there is definitely still, like, if there is something to do, I do have trouble resting.
Yeah. Well, and that's hard for me as a fawn of trying to people please and help you. Because I can never keep up. I can never get a step ahead. And I'm just like constantly like, oh, why? Well, oh, okay. So you saw the laundry there. Okay. I guess we're still going. Great. And so
I exhaust you.
You exhaust me because I'm just trying to get you to be able to take a breath, breathe, rest, because we need to rest. We need to take breaks. We need to stop and be like, hey, this is just a time for me to rest. Let my body rejuvenate.
I'm getting better.
You are. You are. But everybody needs this to understand as well, because if not, because I think what some people mislabel rest is they're doom scrolling. And it's actually sending them into a different cycle of what's taking place. Well, I just rest. I sat all night and I just doom scrolled.
Yeah, but you're still stimulating your nervous system with the constant like input into your brain. Yeah.
So it's not just a physical thing of go, 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 go.
You have to rest your mind too.
Yep.
Yeah. You have to be able not just to rest your body, but to rest your mind, to turn your nervous system off.
Yep.
Yeah. So hypervigilance is when your nervous system stays on guard even after the danger has passed, which is where most adults find themselves with this. So your body is still prepared for conflict, for disappointment, for criticism, for rejection, for loss. So rest doesn't feel like rest. It doesn't feel restorative. It feels like you're being exposed. And people probably are going to notice that as not being able to get to sleep, stay to sleep, whatever, or that just have restless sleep. Guilty while you're resting, which we talked about before. The inability to sit quietly, which we talked about before. That doom scrolling that you just mentioned. Constantly multitasking. For me, running the laundry while I cook the dinner, while I have the dishes going, while I'm setting the table. Like, I can't just do one thing. Or being like totally emotionally flooded. Like, all of those things that are traumatic come back to the surface when you're sitting quietly. So yeah, people assume that this is a discipline issue. Like, you're just not trying hard enough. You need to just try more. Or it's a spiritual problem. Often what we really have is a nervous system problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what it shows up at the spiritual part is that a lot of believers don't know how to simply be with God.
Yeah.
And they know how to perform for him, but not just sit there. And I think that's a huge thing, is because some believe that, hey, I have to do these works to be saved. And it's that type of relationship with God that if I don't keep going, I'm called to do this, so I have to never stop. But then again, he says multiple times, be still with me and know that I am God, and rest. And we see that in the Old Testament and the New Testament both, of resting and just being with God is a spiritual discipline that happens. But if you don't have the nervous system set up, spiritually, you're going to be held up too.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to, hey, I want to be more spiritual, here's one way of doing it, is kind of being still with God. You don't have to earn God's love and grace. He gives us that for free. It's be with him to learn more about him.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people approach God with the same survival patterns that they approach everyday life with.
Right.
And so they try, like you were saying, to perform for God, or to strive to do better for God. Like, oh, I just need to put a little more elbow grease into this relationship with God, or to prove themselves to God. Right. Maybe they think that they have to earn God's love, even though this book says you don't.
Right.
I think that there's just a part of us that feels like it's works-based instead of grace-based.
Right.
And so scripture repeatedly tells us that we can rest, that that's an invitation from God. It never once says that it's a reward if you're exhausted, like that you get an extra jewel in your crown if you get to heaven and you're exhausted.
Yep.
Do you ever think that because you were in ministry for almost 20 years, 15 of those being full-time ministry, do you ever think that ministry culture rewards burnout and overfunctioning?
Rewards, that's a rough answer of there's not really a reward for it. It's a clap, good job, a pat on the back, but that's what ministry does. It causes burnout in a lot of churches if they're not being taken care of because, well, this is your calling. So there's that pressure. So I'm called to do this. I'm called to be involved with these people's lives because I have to spiritually be the person that's there all the time, 24/7. I have to feel like I'm available, but then also doing student ministry many times where it's like, okay, gone for 10 days for camps or a big trip.
Right.
And then we had to come back and preach that Sunday. It's like got a day off, but it was also preparing for the Sunday morning to say, hey, we just got back from Mexico building this house. And I had to make the slideshow. I had to make the sermon. I had to make sure all these it's exhausting.
Yeah.
To be able to do ministry, but then the push it's always there. Exhaustion is always going to be involved in ministry because there's not just the physical part of being involved, but also the emotional part.
Yeah.
And that's where it wears and tears as well, because you start to feel for people that you love and care for, and they're hurting. And so it never stops until you kind of separate and get your own self boundaries. And with that, there's the guilt of that. I set up boundaries. Oh, you're selfish. No, I'm just trying to set up boundaries to protect myself, because if not, then I'm going to burn out and I'm done in ministry.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think the church accepts that at all. I don't think that they reward over functioning and high performance. I think it's expected. Yeah. And if you don't do that, if you don't burn the candle at both ends and exhaust yourself, then you're not a good pastor. You're not trying hard enough. You're lazy. You don't care about the people. Yeah, I agree with you. That was definitely our experience. Yeah,
and that's the deal. It's our experience of what we saw in others. There are some churches out there who do take care of their ministers and protect them. That's great. But not a lot of people come to your church with that same expectation of those ministers either.
Right. Yeah.
And then they get attacked.
Yeah. So let's look at Matthew, because I think that this is the foundation kind of for the real hold where we want to talk about today. And it's Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. And it says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light." I'm glad I have that there, because I have it memorized, but I have it memorized in about 3 different versions. Right. And so forced myself to read it in the version that's written. But I think Jesus isn't saying here that you can come to him when you fixed yourself, or when you can calm down, or once you've stopped struggling, you've stopped sinning. That is not what this message is. He just says, come, even if you're tired. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's hard, because Jesus does accept us in those hard spots. And that's when we probably are turning around, running as far away as possible. And then we turn back and go, where are you at?
Yeah.
And so why do you think it keeps people actually from accepting rest from God? What's some of the boundaries, or not boundaries, but what's some of the roadblocks that are keeping people from just taking rest with God?
I think for me, it was that I believed that rest was earned. That was sort of what was modeled for me growing up, that you don't sit, you don't take a break until all the things are done.
Right.
And so that was the jobs that I worked in, expected things to be. And so I think that our culture says you can rest when the work is done. We have weekends,
Right.
And that's the reward for 40 hours a week of busting your hiney in the office or whatever. So I just feel like for me, my experience is that in every aspect of my life, my personal life, at the church, in my jobs, in culture, rest is earned.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's hard about the gospel in that situation. And maybe why a lot of people don't accept God is because if I can earn him, then it feels like that relationship is equal because of how much he's giving me. And I think that's something that we aren't able to ever grasp and understand. You're never going to be good enough.
That's something that I think that's always been just under the surface in my mind is I know that we feel like we have to, most people feel the effort is needed on our part. But striving for equality is a perspective I don't know that I've ever thought about before. Yeah.
Well, because we want to not just receive things for free, because we want to be able to earn it and to feel worthy of what we receive.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why a lot of times we get into these situations, which is also why healing has to happen.
Yeah.
We have to look into these situations and say, hey, why am I having trauma? Why am I suffering? Why am I not doing all these things? Well, find the source of it. The gospel is available, and Jesus died on the cross for our sins, which means all the things that we've done wrong, which means all the things that probably happened to us as well, if those who hurt us are willing to accept that too. And so if God's forgiving others, he's forgiving us, then it's okay to let it go as well, because we need to forgive what's taking place. We need to work through that trauma, reshape our beliefs, and understand here's the gospel.
Yep. And
it's okay, and reshape our beliefs. It's okay to rest.
Yeah, I think you said that really well. And I think it boils down to he's not asking people to prove themselves.
Right.
He's asking them to just stop carrying the things that are crushing you, which is hard. That's hard for people, because I think what you're saying is true. We want to prove ourselves so that we feel worthy of what he's offering.
Oh, yeah.
Striving for equality is a different perspective. So I think for a lot of people, rest triggers guilt.
Yes.
Somewhere along the way, people have learned that our value comes from productivity. And I think that, I think we see that in culture. 2 days at the end of the week. Congratulations, you did your work.
Right.
And that if you slow down, then you're lazy. And all rest must be earned, even if it's, you can't rest at night until your work is done. Maybe some people even believe that our needs are inconvenient, which is especially true in trauma survivors, and maybe people who have spent extensive amounts of time caring for someone, maybe, an elderly parent, or, if they have a special needs child, something like that. For people who are raised in houses that are just chaotic, like constant overscheduling and busyness, or church environments that are focused on performance, which I think is more church environments than people want to recognize.
Yeah. The studies show burnout and trauma show chronic overfunctioning is strongly linked to anxiety, perfectionism, difficulty experiencing restoration rest. And I think this is, I'm guilty of this, of talking about these things, of this part of being, if I rest, what's that say about my identity? Because I've had a job since I was 12 years old. And with that, that's always kind of been what I thought was expected of me, what everybody else should be doing, what our kids should be doing. And we've had discussions where I'm like, our kids need a job. They need to get a job. Yes, it's the life skills that I'm wanting them to build and understand, because setting our kids up to succeed, one is having the ability to talk to people, which a lot of kids don't know how to have conversations with adults.
Yeah.
But also understanding, hey, have a work ethic. because that's what everybody in their job is going to be seeing. And if you don't, then you're just lazy. You're just a bum. And I think I'm guilty of this part of I can't be resting because I have to keep working. I have to keep going, because if not, then in my head, I'm being a bum. I'm being lazy.
Yeah. That has been one of the most frustrating things for me to watch you struggle through, because you don't, like, you want our kids to be going and working, and you are constantly working. So do you think that some people are physically exhausted but emotionally afraid to stop?
Yeah, because I think physically our bodies are able to push and keep going in a lot of different ways. But that emotional part is crazy, of whenever you start looking into what's some of the things that really slow that part down and what we jump to. Doom scrolling can be there all day, and you can spend a day just scroll. And it's like, what did I do today? And then you feel guilty for that. Staying busy late at night, because there's always, doesn't matter what your job is, there's always more to do. There is. Overcommitting happens a lot of times, because hoping to maybe get a promotion, hoping to get other stuff, or somebody recognizes me, and then, then I'm important, because then it becomes my emotional side of this. And we just struggle through all of those. I think that's a huge part of what am I really trying to do emotionally. Physically, my body can keep pushing, but emotionally, I'm trying to get something out of all this as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So last week and the week before, we talked a little bit about the passage in 1 Kings chapter 19, when Elijah, when he was exhausted, he had just fought this horrible battle. They were victorious, but he was just exhausted, and he laid down and asked God just to like, can I just die? I'm done. Can I just die? We looked at that, and what we saw was that God sent him food, told him to sit, told him to rest, and he took care of him. So God didn't rebuke him for being exhausted, overwhelmed, overworked, frustrated. God didn't shame him for that. And God didn't say, no, there's another battle. Let's go. Come on. Get your sword, man.
Right.
Get the people together.
Right.
We have to keep going. God said, I'm going to do this the other way. I'm going to let you take a nap. I'm going to have the animal feed you, water. All of those things are going to be taken care of. You're going to be right here by a river. I'm going to take care of you. God was gentle with Elijah, and he was there. He didn't abandon Elijah in that time.
Right.
So this is, in my mind, one of the clearest stories that shows us that our regulation, our being at peace, is important to God.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of it, is that God takes care of our body first, because he knows that eating is important. Watching so many teenagers, especially, if they don't eat, how cranky they are, and how angry they can be, and how quick they can snap. And then all of a sudden you give them something to eat, and they're 2 bites in, that's like a different person changes.
Calm over their face and body, and it's like, woo, yeah.
The hangry is a real thing. And I think that's what God also tries to tell us to understand too. Hey, this is a part of all of this that we can help you with.
Yeah.
That he's going to provide.
Yeah. I think that the same is true for believers everywhere. Sometimes the most spiritually mature thing that you can do is rest.
Yep. So what stands out what stands out to you the most about what God's response to Elijah is?
I think for me, it's the fact that Elijah's physical needs matter for his spiritual calling. God is not going to call you to something when you can't handle anything else.
Right.
He's not going to open the door for more for you.
Right.
If you are taxed at every end, if there's no more space for you to be able to accept a new calling or an extended calling or an elevated calling, if you are so overextended that you can barely survive the day, how is God going to add more to that?
Right.
And so I think that that's what the thing that stands out to me the most in this is that he is protecting Elijah's physical body for his spiritual calling. So our physical needs matter to God.
Yeah.
And he's not demanding performance from Elijah. He is taking the time to restore his capacity before he asks for any higher performance.
Yeah. And I think that's great of what God's teaching us and the different stuff. Because I know there's many times we read these stories in the Bible and it's like, man, I'd never be able to do what Elijah just did. And well, part of that's a relationship with God and understanding what can I do? Do I have fear? And am I slowing myself down? Is there trauma that's really slowing me down from really connecting with God to work through these things and to be able to have that relationship with him? And I think that's why it's important for us to understand these steps of moving forward physically, emotionally, and spiritually. We need to evaluate all of these elements.
Yeah.
And how do we, now focusing on a little bit of the physical stuff, some of the stuff that we've kind of talked about of physically, you get stressed, you have that trauma experience, you get triggered. Now what do you do?
Yeah. So I think the physical part of healing is learning to teach your nervous system that you're safe again. And that you can't force that.
Right.
That has to be gentle and repetitive, which we talked about last week. Just that you have to give yourself a little bit of grace and that it's going to take time and you have to practice the same things multiple times. Yeah. So you probably, if this is you, if you are like both of us and you see these things in your life, you're probably not going to get a whole 24-hour rest day right off the bat, even though, and we've talked about Sabbath, that is a goal and that you're probably going to have to start small. Maybe take 5 minutes outside, maybe walk barefoot on the grass. Sit in a spot and just practice breathing. Maybe it's box breathing or 5 count inhale, 10 count exhale. Maybe just play some quiet worship music. That would be great. Take a walk without multitasking. It doesn't have to be hard.
Right.
It
doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
That's the other part too with this, because I think there's so much pressure now of, okay, I'm healing. Now I have to get connected with God. Now I have to do this. And then we just stressed up our stress and everything else.
Rewired your nervous system to even more stress.
Yep.
Yeah. Another thing you could do are just some grounding techniques. Sit with your feet on the floor. Like I said, walk barefoot outside. Notice your breath. If you're quick inhales and exhales, slow them down a little. Feel the chair. If you're sitting in a chair, feel the chair underneath you. Consciously practice feeling what that feels like, because that's going to help you stay connected in the present moment. It stops your mind from going off somewhere else, and you kind of are present in the moment. Instead of saying, oh, I have to do this, like you were saying, I have to rest correctly, just ask God to sit with you while you rest, which he'll do. I mean, that story from from 1 Kings with Elijah shows us that. Just sit here with me, Lord, and rest with me, because the goal is never to be perfect.
Right.
And that's hard for most people because that perfection shows up, but it's really it's a subtle form of self-criticism and shame, and we've got to let it go. So it's just, the goal is to learn that you don't have to stay in survival mode, that you can calm your nervous system and experience peace, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is something that I've learned how to sometimes just shut off and rest. And it's not easy. You have to learn different times, different seasons of that taking place. But for me, sometimes I just shut off, and then I see you still running, and I'm like, slow down, stop. I'm trying to rest.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes that working with somebody to be able to do that as well, I think is huge. To be able to have each other accountability and doing that stuff too can be helpful as well. So what are some practical ways you've personally had to learn how to slow your nervous system down?
That's a question. I think one of the ways that I've had to learn is to like just put my phone down and sit. Like when the kids come in, like put my phone down. I don't need to be scrolling. Like
Right.
I don't need to multitask this conversation with them. They are the most important thing. Whoever the person is that came into the room, I will, because I like to multitask. I like to, while I'm cooking, listen to a podcast, or while I'm walking, listen to a podcast. But so I think that's a big one for me is just learning to turn the podcast off, put the phone down, don't scroll. Yes, there are good things that I'm gaining from the podcast or whatever, but the person in front of me is more important.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something else kind of noticing is that there are some things we feel comfortable in doing those multitasking stuff, but then sometimes there's another extra thing that will trigger some of us and overstimulate us. And then it's like, I can't do all of this at once and realize that's especially a time to say, breathe, what's important? What do I need to do?
Right. Yeah. So going back to scripture, where I'd like to just kind of bring us back to the idea that creation even has a rhythm. And it teaches us that rhythm is important. So Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul.
Yep.
So these, like, if you think about just when we hear that, what are we seeing? We're seeing green pastures, still waters, soul level restoration. Like he restores my soul. So creation is designed with rhythm, and it's not designed with endless striving. It operates within order. We have day, we have night, we have work, we have Sabbath, we have activity, and he invites us to be still. So even what we see in the Bible encourages this. We just have to teach our nervous system that it's okay.
Yeah. And the world is going to teach the opposite and reward the exhaustion and the stress and the people that are feeling guilty to slow down and, hey, just keep going. Because at your job, you may not have the ability to slow down where they're just go, 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 go. We have goals to meet. We have this to do. We have that. And then we'll give you a reward for it. And it just burn you out.
Yeah. I think if we can get to the idea that worship is actually just stopping, bowing to productivity, that would be huge. If we could stop bowing to productivity and calling that worship, that would be massive. So what do you think happens to people spiritually when they live disconnected from rest for years?
I think their relationship and their growth is shallow. So there's not a lot of growth that's going to happen. It's just basic stuff. Resentment is going to happen because, I put all this in and then didn't get back. Or feel guilty because, I did all these bad things. Burnout's going to be taking place. And the inability to hear God clearly, I think, is where a lot of people have the big roadblocks of, I didn't just hear a booming voice. Well, no, because you didn't sit and listen and take the time to listen to the whisper. And that's hard. That takes time. That takes training. And it's okay to be fatigued, but also you have to rest.
Yeah. You have to restore yourself from the fatigue. Yeah. So last week we kind of talked about what do things look like before you feel when you're in the healing process and after you've healed. So I'd like to do that again because I feel like that was encouraging.
Yeah.
That there's progression,
Right.
even if it doesn't feel like it when you're in the middle of it, that you are still progressing. So before you have healed, rest might feel unsafe.
Oh, yeah.
It might feel like you're being lazy. It might feel like you're being unproductive. It might feel uncomfortable emotionally. And you might want to stay in constant motion.
Yeah. During healing, you're probably going to feel your exhaustion and start to notice it. Your compulsive productivity of I'm just go, 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 go. And it's going to start, hey, here's a red flag of what's going on around me. And this stage can actually feel harder because the awareness increases.
Yeah.
And also as we have accountability partners to be able to point some of these things out of here's, hey, I need your help. If I start doing compulsive working, just chore, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I may be stuck in this cycle of just, I feel like I have to do.
Yeah. I've had a couple clients that I'm like, you do realize that is the flight response, right? Like, what are you running from? Yeah.
And that during the healing time is going to be the most difficult because you're going to start seeing it a lot.
Yeah. You notice it in yourself and then it's a bit discouraging.
Yes.
Yeah. However, there is hope on the other side.
There is.
After some healing, rest is going to become more restorative. You are going to be able to do it intentionally. It's not going to be as scary, not going to be as threatening. And it will become eventually, once you start building those belief systems, rewiring your brain, experiencing a bit of neuroplasticity, that rest will be connected to trust and not fear, which is huge. It's not going to be perfect, but it will be safer. And that's the goal. Healing is probably not going to remove stress, but it might change your relationship with stillness.
Right.
So, so maybe if you realized during this episode that you don't actually know what rest is,
it's hard.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And that realization can feel real sad and also hopeless. Of I don't understand that. And that's hard because awareness is where the healing actually starts, is whenever you start to realize I never rest, I never stop. Then yeah, that's the first step of starting to heal. And how do I start taking those steps forward?
Yeah. So if rest is hard for you, you're not failing. That's the first thing. Recognize that your nervous system has probably just learned that slowing down is dangerous, but God can teach you something new, and He's teaching you something new today. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to prove your worth to Him by being exhausted. You don't get an extra jewel in your crown if you had so many days of your life that you were exhausted. That is not what we're looking at here. You are allowed to heal, and you can do it slowly. Yeah. You didn't get in the mess overnight, so it's not going to. It's not going to be fixed overnight.
Yeah. And stillness is going to feel uncomfortable. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because once that healing starts to take place, also realize that uncomfortable is meaning that you are safe.
Yeah.
You're out of that unsafe spot that you're used to being into all the time.
Yeah. Or you're constantly running from something.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe your first step in healing today just is learning to understand that God is present, not just in your productivity, but also in your gentle pause.
Yeah. Some questions to kind of ask yourself from this, to reflect on, I think is key. When do I feel most uncomfortable slowing down? And there could be a lot of spots with that.
Yes.
Do I associate my worth with productivity, which is me? I do that all the time.
Yep.
What emotions tend to surface when life gets quiet? What all's going on in your head when things get quiet?
That can be a really triggering question. So be ready for that to bring some stuff up.
Yeah, because it's going to get loud.
Yeah.
Just because you're quiet physically does not mean that your head's going to be quiet. It's probably going to get loud.
Yeah.
And what would it look like to practice rest without guilt? That's huge. Where might God be invited into gentle rhythms with you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd encourage you, take a walk, that would be a gentle rhythm that God could participate with you that I think is super meaningful. So if this episode resonated, feel free to like, subscribe, share it with a friend. If you think that you're going to need accountability, if you would like some help walking through your trigger response, especially like this one, really flight and fawn a lot. But yeah, if you would like help walking through those, we would be more than happy to do that. You can find all of our coaching services at curatedcoalition.com. And we'd love to connect with you. Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. My hope is that you leave here reminded that whatever you're facing, you're not crushed, abandoned, or destroyed. That's the promise of 2 Corinthians 4:8 and 9 and the heartbeat of hope through the hard. Visit curatedcoalition.com for all of our coaching services or to book your free consultation. We'll see you next time.